And we're live. Welcome to Earful of Dirt, the Major League Rugby podcast. We are live a few minutes late with a couple technical difficulties behind us, but we are here today. Happy to be here. I'm Corey Munson, coming to you live from Iowa, joined as always by Aaron Castro in Arizona and Liam Madigan-Freed in Houston. Josh Fredland is our moderator. He's behind the scenes, taking all your comments and all that fun stuff. So, fellas, how was your week?
Some rugby, some baseball. I did go to the gym. And my squats in. I am not in my prime. I can tell you that right now. But we are back over 220. Well, I guess 225 was the last set on deadlift and squat. But we are back over 200 pounds. That's what happens, everyone, when you get hit while cycling. So, got to get in the gym, got to get it in. Otherwise, you'll shrivel up like Liam.
Yeah, man, that ship is long. That ship is long sailed. I'm off the field by now. I have no reason to go into a gym. Why the hell would I go into a gym? Instead, I can go into a bar like I was doing yesterday during the my first ever St. Patrick's Day in Houston, Texas. That was pretty fun. Went down to Main Street. Also hit up Griff's Irish Pub, which has the longest running St. Patrick's Day celebration in Houston, Texas. Shout out to the staff at Griff's. They know me, so that's pretty much pretty much how my weekend went.
Oh man,
I feel like moving from Boston, St. Patrick's Day, any place else, just I don't know, it can't be the same thing, can it?
Nah, I mean the only thing is though, like I haven't. I've only been to Boston, like the city for St. Patrick's Day like once, and I wasn't even one, so I just did a whole lot of, other some underage partaking of the festivities, I guess you could say. I've been in Vermont for most of my St. Patrick's Day festivities, and that's always fun. So Houston presented me with a pretty good time.
Yeah, we don't do St. Patrick's Day. Well, they do it, but it's nothing like Chicago St. Patrick's Day or New York St. Patrick's Day. I don't know what Boston does. I really have no clue. But
neither do we the next morning, man. What are you talking about?
But I know that Chicago literally dyes their river this green. It was kind of disgusting. Oh, and then I wake up. And this is, somebody's gonna complain about us not talking about rugby or something.
Take a shot.
For those that want to know, the Earful of Dirt drinking game is out. So go look it up on Reddit. It's kind of funny. But
courtesy Liam, thank you, sir.
So it's just funny to see. I woke up and Conor McGregor was invited to partake in the Chicago festivities. He marched in the parade. It was kind of cool. I guess the Chicago Irish needed to bring a real Irishman or one that actually will fight people, which I don't know if he got into a fight, but this is where it was stupid. Like
he smashed a dude's phone pretty recently, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So that was in Miami or something like that. And he was booked. I forget what the crime he was charged with. Not petty theft. It was something else. But basically, some guy got in his face, was like, "Connor, can I take a picture?" And he grabbed it. And Connor's, by all accounts, is a pretty nice dude, unless you get up in his face. So he's kind of like a horse. You can't have you gotta approach calmly. I
would love to see you call Conor McGregor a horse to his face.
Well, I mean, it's you gotta approach in a specific kind of way, otherwise he might punch you in the face.
It's fucking nothing.
But so some idiot, I don't know. People, I mean, we are sports journalists now in this day and age, but some person that called themselves a journalist was sending requests to the Irish consulate and the Irish government for comments about why Conor McGregor was why he was in a St. Patrick's Day parade in Chicago. It's like, And the Irish government states that they have no knowledge of the reason why Conor McGregor is in Chicago. Like, first of all, Conor's legal troubles are in Florida, not in Ireland. So why the heck are you like hitting up the Irish consulate to find out like why Conor McGregor like is in Chicago? I mean, geez, like find something else to talk about.
Like rugby?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. It was a pretty decent weekend of rugger. And you know, it was, but yeah. So
you got a rundown coming?
Well, I was going to say, before we get too into this, I just want to tell you what we normally do. For those tuning in for the first time to Earful of Dirt, each week we host this little podcast, live stream thinger. We discuss news and rumors from Major League Rugby, the United States Professional Rugby Union. It's a chance for us to look at the issues, hear from the league, players, team leadership, and check in with our friends from across the rugby scene. So with all that said, Aaron, can you tell us what we're going to be talking about this week?
Oh, yeah. So New York eke out a win over – what does it say, New York? That makes no sense. The Rooney Roosters eke out a win over the Toronto Arrows, who flew a little bit, but not high enough. Austin is improving, but the Seawolves still win. NOLA flies, Houston sinks. And, of course, you know, Glendale likes to kiss their sister.
That pretty much sums it up. So we started out the weekend with a, just a humdinger of a match out there in New York City.
Could you sound any more Iowa? Like, a humdinger there, you know?
Yeah. That's bordering on
the big city of New York, don't you know?
Yeah. Minnesota, Wisconsin, eh?
It's not the same thing out in the Midwest. It's not just one big Fargo episode, no?
The further north you go, the worse it gets. We're halfway between Minnesotan and, well, howdy there, partner. I'm from Missouri. So, yeah. Somehow in the middle, we end up kind of middling in our language skills. So, and for those taking track, that's making fun of Iowa. Take a drink. So, Aaron, how's classes this week? Oh, wait.
Take a drink. Oh, man. Oh.
Well, what I was going to say is you couldn't have asked for a much better way to start off the weekend. A late win by Rooney put in against Toronto in their first home game. So this took place at MCU Park on Coney Island. Aaron, tell us all about it.
You know, really close game for the most part. I would say New York really was in control for a good portion of this game. Really led out by the fact that something I mentioned the other week was their scrummaging has just gotten a lot better. Rounded out into form, James Roquefort. I mean, he's got like a French name, but he's Scottish or something. I don't know. But he went 80 minutes at the loose head position. You know, it's kind of funny to see that front row. Not the Butcher. The Butcher does what he does. You can't really take much away from him. He went over the line twice with 2 tries. And, you know, just got after it with 18 tackles. But the thing that has changed for New York has been their scrum. And Toronto has had a pretty strong scrum throughout this league year in the competition. When it came to, there was some significant level of competitiveness going on with this. It was a bit of a grudge match, I guess, in a sense. Like this is, I mean, I'm gonna take a dump all over the Boston New York rivalry, but how about this rivalry, New York versus Toronto, which is really an extension of the old blue versus Ontario Blues rivalry, which those matches the last couple of years have been as good old Iowan Corey Munson says, a humdinger of a match. But yeah, this was a really good one. The great thing about ESPN Plus was that I wasn't at home. I was coming back on the train from the Colegio, and I watched it on my phone. So that was really cool. If you didn't know, the drinking game is in session. Drinking, hydrate with water, please. Again, Cahal Marsh goes out. Matina played 10 really the rest of the night. Wasn't the same as last week, but he did do enough for New York. The huge thing for New York really, again, is how their type 5 is going on. Toronto played the possession game and pushed the ball deep, forced New York to concede penalties, which allowed Sam Malcolm to take 9 points in penalties. Their attack overall really was stymied by that New York defense. They only scored one try. Sam Malcolm also converted that try. But overall, Toronto, we got to work on some things. Jack Nay, you need to start doing Jack Nay things. Okay?
So right now you ain't doing jack shit. No, that I just wanted to make the point. He's doing plenty. You're doing plenty, Jack. You keep doing what you're doing. But so I just wanted to say that this is the kind of the game that I love seeing. There are two teams who are at their best in two different areas of the game, by which I mean New York is kind of better to the outside. Toronto's kind of better at going up the middle. It's USA versus Canada, even better. So we kind of backed up our Can-Am Trophy win with a win with Rooney versus Toronto. So definitely a good connection there. Going to the stats, Ben Foden is one player for New York who stood out 125 meters on the day thanks to a big line break. He didn't even crack the top 3 in terms of ball carries, so that's a very impressive mark. A person who did crack the top 3 in terms of ball carries, though, Dylan the Butcher Fawcett, 68 meters on 10 carries. He's a guy who week after week he's putting to bed, the idea that forwards can't run. He's a hooker who I feel like is really good with the ball in hand. He can definitely make that gain line game after game. Like Aaron said, the Butcher's just going to do what he do. New York's defense, though, the reason why Toronto was definitely, as competitive as they were in this game, it definitely needs a little work. They let up 2 total line breaks. Shout out to my fellow New Englander, Trevor Cassidy, for leading the team with 25 total tackles in New York. But they let up a gain line over margin of about 60% to a team that we've seen, in the past, and their record shows that they've had issues with, at times moving the ball. This game, that was a little, less of an issue, but ultimately not good enough. In terms of people who stood out on the arrows for me, Gaston Mieres. Am I pronouncing that right? Gaston Mieres?
It's either Mieres or Mieres. I think it's Mieres. Is he Brazilian?
I have no idea.
He's Brazilian. It's Mieres.
Whatever. Gaston Mieres, he led the arrows with 90 total meters, thanks to having one of 2 team line breaks. But the most efficient with the ball, on paper at least, is Giuseppe Dutoit, 10 carries. Giuseppe Dutoit. Sorry, man.
10. Is that considered a fact check?
Dutoit.
Is it? I guess so. Yeah. Drink anyways. Drink. It's good for you. 10 carries for 69 meters with a line break and, of course, a try. Most of his carries is what helped this team to a 60% gain line over rate. And was one of the people that really helped them stay competitive in this one. So, So some good stuff from Toronto, but overall good win to grind out for Rooney.
And a great way to start a home stand as well.
Yeah, and also, by the way, there will never be a better rivalry than Boston versus New York. Just wait until the Free Jacks come in next year. This will get a lot more interesting in MLR.
Having absolutely nothing to do with the game itself, I got to say the setting of that ballpark with like the roller coasters in the back and all that, it looked cool.
Oh, speaking of,
I want to see the Warriors come out,
First set of whinging on the weekend was from another team who did not play in MSU Park. But it was about baseball stadiums and about how the angles didn't work. And yeah, I didn't like how they lined it up, but oh my gosh. Can we not do that? Like, can we not just complain about the fact that teams are in baseball stadiums. Hello.
It's cool, dude. It's it's an interesting experience.
You can't play half the league fixtures at high school stadiums. Why? Because you cannot provide a adult entertainment experience. And by adult, I mean
booze,
beer, wine, liquor. You can't do that. NOLA is different because it's like private-public partner. Well, private partnership because it's a private school and it's Catholic. And the stadium is like leased by an LLC. It's really complicated. But the point is, their situation in New Orleans is completely different to everyone else's who would be leasing public school stadiums where you cannot sell alcohol. And, the reason why there will never be professional sports in downtown Seattle again, specifically at Memorial Stadium, is because, because it's a school district owned facility. So,
yeah. Plus, one issue that the SaberCats saw last season when they were playing at Dyer Stadium, which is a high school regulation football field, it was very thin. It's not your typical rugby regulation width, and so that kind of affected the way patterns out on the wing could develop. So it's definitely not something that backs coaches were particularly fond of.
No. Just when it comes to baseball stadiums, there may be more baseball stadiums in the future of this league very shortly, because one thing that they allow is capacity, and like a significant capacity increase. If you look at Dell Diamond, sadly, it's a 13,000 seat stadium. Where the Austin played last year could only accommodate 2,500. You couldn't accommodate your VIPs really that well. Whereas Constellation Field, MCU Park, Dell Diamond all have suites, so you can accommodate VIP sponsors and all that stuff. When it comes to entertainment options, you can't do that at a high school stadium. So, I foresee baseball stadiums being a part of the league for a little while. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think since we're talking about baseball stadiums, that might count as a long-winded conversation about something other than rugby. Drink.
Damn it, Corey, we're going to get our whole audience too drunk to keep on listening. But
we are 20 minutes into the episode. I hope you're on the floor right now.
Yeah, right. Crack open a new one, man. Cheers.
All right. Man. Second game of the weekend. We had Seattle up against Austin Elite. And honestly, I think Austin Elite put in a decent show, all things considered. But much like Houston's bout against the Seawolves last week, Austin gave Seattle a run for their money early in the match. But Seattle has this kind of speaks to a larger point, which is I think Seattle has not been turning in the dominant performances that we would expect from the defending champions this year, like we saw from last year. So, Liam, I'm curious what you saw, what you thought about this game.
Well, at the end of the day, wins are wins, and Seattle has been winning, even if it hasn't been in a totally dominant fashion in every single instance. First, I also want to say to the Austin Elite, I get it better than anybody on this show right now that losing a lead on a really good team, especially Seattle, sucks. But should we be asking, why is Seattle now seemingly played down to lesser teams as of late? Kind of like you were saying, wasn't their best performance, but at least they're grinding out with the wins. However, despite the fast start, Seattle ultimately ended up, despite the fast start from Austin, Seattle ultimately ended up controlling 60% of the total possession, coupled with a 61% territory advantage. So it's easy to see where the comeback came from. Once in the second half, they started playing, a much tighter ball control, really good ball retention, making sure that their players an opportunity to score. Here's the kicker. Austin's territory rate was only 39%, and teams this year have been averaging about 43, 45% territory rate. So that's pretty low. Especially in most of that comes from the second half when Austin just wasn't possessing the ball that much. They were allowing Seattle just to kind of have their way and put up points and, taking away all the scoring opportunities from Austin. So when you don't have the opportunities, it's going to be really hard to win a rugby game. Keeping it going on stats like I like to do, Seattle had 804 total meters gained on 180 passes, giving them an average meters per pass of 4.4. Not really that high, but when you look at it alongside their possession advantage, it definitely says that they were playing a more methodical, controlling game, especially in that second half, like I said. So this is how you see Seattle grind out these wins. They make sure that they at least keep the ball, they keep possession, and they make the big splash plays whenever they can to get the points.
One of the things to look at this game is two things really. I would say one of them put the nail in the coffin onto Austin, and that was Mo Abdelmonem's yellow card. But I would say the momentum shift really happened in the first half when Tian Erasmus went out and had to sit on the bench. I think that really caused greater fatigue for Austin Elite versus whatever else was going on, because they were having a really good first half, and then he gets a yellow at minute 26, and Seattle starts to come back. If you look at where they really screwed up, is Austin just committed 5 penalties in a row on both sides of the half. They committed 2 penalties right before the end of the first half, and then 3 penalties almost right away to begin the second half. And one of the things I think that Seattle probably looked at is that they were starved of the ball. And one of the things that they kept the ball away from Austin in the second half was passes. I know that you're really into passing statistics. Well, I think they borrowed from Glendale's game last week against Austin. So the pass differential is almost 2-1. Seattle just moved the ball in the second half. They had 180 total passes to Austin's 95. If you look at Glendale's game last week, they had 205 passes. I think it was really high, to under 100 for Austin. And that seems to be the way right now to beat Austin Elite. Is to make them concede penalties, get yellows, and just move the ball from side to side until you hit a gap. And,
make them tackle. I just want to say, like, Austin, they had 222 total tackles and Seattle only 98. So Austin was on defense a whole lot. 222 total tackles.
So think about this.
Yeah.
So for how hard they were playing, right, do you think they would have been fatigued from last week? Because they had 225 tackles against Glendale.
222 this week. Holy crap, man. Like that must be like a car crash on your body, 2 weeks in a row.
So that's just really insane. So I guess, Austin's defense is holding up a bit. But they had this one of the big things I've been talking about that they haven't had most of the season is consistency of selection along the spine. Tian Erasmus is basically the knocked-on starter right now at hooker, and then you have Rodrigo Silva and Michael Romero seem to have rounded out to become the first choice at 9 and 10, and then Sohail Jaudat is playing in the backfield at 15. So you've got really a good spine, and then also their number 8, one of the Larsons, has just been there the entire time. So once you get consistency of selection along your spine, you're going to be pretty good overall, I think, or you're going to be really bad. But so far they've gotten better there. The front row is figured out. Oh my gosh, it's taken a while just for them to learn each other overall. And here's one that's a loss for Seattle. Lerone White is just he's going to be a hell of a player. He is a big man. He's athletic. He hits hard. I don't know why you let him go. I really don't. I thought Mack not starting given Smith's form from last weekend was a really poor choice. I think that really kept Seattle off on the back foot. And we sort of saw that significantly when they played against Houston. JP Smith really didn't have a good game as well. The tempo just was completely different once the Iceman got onto the pitch. Key for Seattle in this game really, like I said, was the adjustments. Having a coach off the pitch that is only a coach really helps, because then they can dictate the strategy and adjust in the second half, which Seattle did. That's, as we said, just run up Austin's tackle count. Just any opponent, you just run up their tackle count, you get it over 200, you're probably going to win. Reichert Hatting, just a casual player of the week performance, 2 tries. The first one for Seattle, then the last one for Seattle to seal the deal. Hammer the nail in the coffin, per se. I guess I'm going to use that pun a lot tonight. But really, Austin is getting better. Hard to know when they'll win their games, but they will win some games because, I think they're just going to beat Utah on that return game. So maybe they'll get another of that, but they are rounding out into form, and you just gotta, if they're holding it close like this against Glendale and Seattle, someone's not going to like their day at some point.
Well, I would say that if Austin's potentially on the upswing here, our next game, I think, illustrates a team that may legitimately be in trouble right now. So Houston took a thumping at the hands of NOLA. 49-11 was the final on this one. This is perhaps the most dominant performance that NOLA has put in to date. The team showed up with a lot of strength on both offense and defense. Near the end of the game, Houston was issued 2 red cards after a fight broke out on the field. If it's okay with you guys, I think what we're going to do is let's talk through the match. And then, Aaron, if you want to kind of come back afterwards and we can talk through the penalties and just kind of you give me your thoughts on that, okay?
All right. Well, I will hold on to that, I guess, poem that I wrote at the top.
An epic, a ballad, if you will.
So let's get into the game. So Houston has a scrum. They can earn some penalties here and there, but that's it. Right now, we are going back to last season and seeing a disconnect in the game plan starting to come out again. There's frustration again. It's like the forwards are doing one thing and the backs are doing another, and they are, for some reason, they are just not communicating. I mean, Liam, you're there, but I'm telling you what I'm seeing. So just bear with me before I get any comments. So you bring in a defense coach. What defense is going on? Tristan Bluett set a Major League Rugby record. Yes, only second season, but he had 237 meters made from 9 carries. Holy what?
It's a lot.
New Orleans, they did enough in the scrum. They weren't the dominant scrum, but they did enough to make sure that they got their ball back on their restarts to run their attack. They hit the gaps and they scored a lot of points. I won't say the game was over when those cards hit, but Houston, it was there wasn't much life shown. So yeah, Nola pretty good. And here's another thing. They have the weakest schedule the rest of the season.
Yeah, Houston's schedule is pretty brutal coming up. I mean, we have Seattle. We have Seattle again before we have Austin, which whatever. But sometimes that gumbo rugby is just too spicy for somebody to take on. Now, this was a disappointing one for me, especially after such a strong start. Sam Windsor, he went 2 for 2 on penalty conversions, and he's actually, on a silver lining. He's looking, likely to finish near the top of the league in points once again. What I noticed most of all, though, is that this team gets everything it needs to get done between the 22s. But once they're knocking on the try-line door, there's some kind of disconnect that you can't even articulate. So one thing that has been killer to us this season has been these line breaks from seemingly nowhere from every team that we faced. It was especially killer in this game with a total of 6. And often they're coming on, they're coming after turnovers, that we commit in otherwise pretty productive bunches of phases. Yeah. So when it comes to the numbers, Houston, thanks to their aforementioned issue of finishing inside the 22s, they controlled 55% of total possession to go along with a 52% marking territory. NOLA, meanwhile, 45% possession rate, 48% territory. But, an astounding 989 meters made on 147 passes, giving them an average MPP of 6.7. Now, noted that high mark may mostly be due to the 6 line breaks that I mentioned. Tristan Blewett, like you said, had a great game, over 200 meters, 9 touches. So that's a 26.3 MPP average for those that, don't want to do the math. The only place that I can say that the Cats had really good success, that they can, stand upon going forward. They were really good at contesting and defending in the breakdown. They had 3 total steals compared to just 1 for NOLA. Hopefully this is something they can, that it can help them moving forward, creating more chances, especially inside the 22s to actually score some points and win some games, because they're so damn capable of doing it. They just need to break through.
There's a lot to like out of Houston, but like I mentioned at the top, there was just some real disastrous play, especially towards the end of the game. So kind of to set up the situation, it was about the 70th minute, and there was a Justin VC had a run that was called dead, and he just kind of kept going and ran into one of the NOLA defenders and pretty much just took him out hard. And that caused folks to start pushing, shoving, throwing punches and everything else. And it was pretty crazy. There's obviously a lot of frustration, especially I'm sure on Houston's side, for having had such a rough match and having, frankly, a rough season going to this point. So at that point, VC was called for a red card following the fight, but then Osei Kalinisau was also caught up in this, accused by one of the line judges of pulling somebody out of the pile, possibly choking them or something. The specifics aren't exact, just what they said from the sideline mics. So that kind of sets us up on what happened, what led to the 2 red cards. There were no red cards issued against NOLA. It was only 2 SaberCat players, so Osei Kalinisau and Justin VC. Aaron, what's our takeaway from this? Kind of what are we looking at? What's their future looking like in the next few weeks?
So, we've had sightings last year. One of the things to worry about is, getting the judicial decisions made public so that we just know about it. I know Osei Kalinisau's sighting, that is currently 2 weeks from what I understand. It will be appealed. I think that the likelihood of it being so here's the thing. Suspensions in rugby go by weeks and not by games. So Houston has a bye week next week, right? So basically is effectively a 1-game ban. Now, the reason why I would appeal it, to be honest, and I think the reason why it's going to be appealed is that there's no evidence. Like, if he did or didn't do it, whatever, there's a mosh pit that splits into 2 mosh pits, and without a TMO system in place, you miss some angles. So there's no clear evidence that he did anything. He may have, but it was a fight, that was a brawl. So there were other people that could have gotten some cards too, on I guess really on both sides, considering how. So I don't know what the AR saw. don't really care. I'm just saying that because video evidence wise, there is nothing conclusive that says anything that says he's even involved. I think that they have a chance to get it appealed and reduced to 1 week, or it could just come off. But here's the thing with the appellate process is that it is longer than the citing process. So I guess my recommendation would be to just eat it and take the one game, because you have a bye next week and he'll be back in 3 weeks total for, I think, what is it, a game against the Seawolves is what you said? Liam, as far as your game after Utah?
I don't believe it's the Seawolves directly after Utah. I just know that we play, because we were talking about strength of schedule before, and I know that we play Seattle before we play Austin again.
Got it.
So,
yeah. So whoever, either way, he would be back in 3 weeks. Okay, for that game that is 3 weeks away. And the reason why I mentioned about the judicial process and that it can take a longer period of time, it just does. So do you really want to spend 2 weeks working on the judicial process rather than just taking the game? Now, when it comes to Joshua Vithies, so a lot of things come into this, right? Prior history. So this is about the citing process. Joshua Vithi had a citing last season. He also had a few cards last season. He's had a card this season. So when it comes to leniency, I said to a few people that if you appeal, you're either going to get off or you're going to get the book. And the reason why I think you're going to get the book thrown at you is it was dead ball foul. The whistle was blown, so it was dead. The argument could be made is that two grown rugby players, were running at each other. All right, but here's the reason why it's a red card and not any of the other stuff. It's because it was contact to the head. And everything we've seen from the Premiership preseason, which in a friendly between Sale and Toulouse or Toulon, I forget, Chris Ashton got 5 weeks for contact to the head. Not even just touch the dude's head. When he was carrying on a carry. So he got 5 weeks. So I'm just saying, with what World Rugby is doing with the judicial process, with contact to the head, it doesn't matter if you're barely, scratching them. It's a long suspension. So I just want to – that's what we're seeing when it comes to the judicial process. I don't think you're going to get much. I really don't. You may be able to get it reduced, but I don't even know what the citing is for this. I just know that Kalinisau's is 2 weeks and that they have a very high chance of appealing that ruling and get it reduced to 1 week or even nothing. And here's the thing, when you get penalties reduced, it's sort of in your favor when it comes to like past history. It's length of suspension 1 week. So okay, it doesn't really go into like the decision at the citing and judicial hearings. So it's and here's, I know some people may complain about the judicial process. The reason why I would say the judicial process assumes guilt all throughout World Rugby, and rather than, innocent until proven otherwise, right, is it's not about like guilt or anything. It's about adjusting on-field behavior. I will say this about rugby in general, is that for the most part, most discipline occurs from on-field action, and there isn't a lot of off-field stuff. There is some, and, sometimes the courts take care of it, sometimes they don't. And, as we saw last year in Ireland and all that stuff that happened there. But for the most part, I think the policing system does create a behavior change of on the pitch behavior and probably off the field behavior as well. So there's my long and winded legal viewpoint, I am not a lawyer. I am a law student, but I am not a JD student, so don't take me to the bank. And to be an expert on world rugby laws and the judicial process takes a very long time. I'm just extrapolating from what I've seen the past couple of years when it comes to judicial decisions to sort of give you an idea. Like I said, I don't even know how long this thing is. It could be the rest of the season because I'm thinking, I'm thinking it's going to be 5 weeks. That's what I think, but it's not out yet.
Quick question then. Regarding the rest of the fight, is there any possibility for additional penalties coming in on either side towards NOLA or Houston?
As I understand it, the sighting review is done, and there has been no further sightings for NOLA or Houston from that fight because it's just, you can't be suspending 20 people. I guess the attempt is to take the hardest offender and make an example out of them. But I would state that Osea got 2 weeks. That's not a lot for what was going on. So I would say they went light, probably because they didn't have video evidence when you think about it. But I think that they have a chance to get that reduced to a 1 week suspension, if not removed to as if, to basically downgrade it to a yellow card, really.
Okay. So. Well, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. And I'm sure it'll come back up again in the next few weeks on the show. So don't worry, we won't not cover this. Okay, let's move on to happier trails. The last game of the weekend was Glendale versus San Diego Legion. And I think Glendale has coined a new slogan for the team. It basically is, if you can't beat them, tie them. And so for the second time this season, Glendale ended a game in a tie, 28-all against San Diego. I think Josh really summed this one up best over on earfulofdirt.com in his weekend wrap-up. He said, this match will be debated as match of the weekend, along with the Rooney-Toronto match. San Diego had the lead, lost it, and then came back and earned the draw. There were some controversial moments in the match that had an effect on both sides. But really, I think it's another humdinger, if you don't mind me saying.
Humdinger.
Liam, tell us what you saw in this one.
All right. I just want to say first, I hate ties. I feel like the fact that we have ties has more to do with fitting into the network time slots than it does anything else. And I don't know. Again, it's the one thing that Pro got right. San Diego has at least kept things interesting this season. Thinking back to their come from behind win against Houston, numbers wise, not all too great offensively. Only a 41% possession advantage with a 52% gain line over mark. I like the way that Glendale particularly gets the ball to the outside. They only hit a 3.9 meters per pass rating on the evening, but that's not to say that there wasn't some fireworks. I think Harley Davidson and Mika Cruze are two of the most entertaining people in the Major League Rugby right now. And they're kind of like what I wish Joshua Vithi and Osea Kalinisau were to the Houston SaberCats. Because, if you notice, there's always some sort of interaction between the two of them on the outside that gets the other a try. And both of them, I'm pretty sure, scored this past weekend. Mika in particular, had a great try in the corner. And I've noticed that's kind of become his signature put down. It's just barely reaching across the try line in the corner and making sure he dots it down. So two very entertaining guys. I'm glad that Major League Rugby had them for this season.
It was a really fun match. I guess we can sort of cover the Cara Cup a little bit. I watched a little bit of it later, Dylan. But it was a thumping, I guess. But I'll get to that. This game was, hey, quit kissing your sister, Glendale. Come on.
What is with the kissing the sister thing, man?
A tie is like kissing your. I need to. I think there's a movie. I'll send it.
I don't think that's a thing, Aaron. I don't.
Those words. I don't think they mean what you think they mean.
Oh yeah, that's where it's from. So it's a line in Bad News Bears, the original one. But it was apparently used by Navy football coach Eddie Erdelatz against Duke is 1953. So it is a thing, and it has been used in pop culture. So
whatever, man. Just go about kissing your sister. But anyway.
So, one of the things that's been a sight to behold is San Diego's scrum last year was really bad. Okay. Then the players, they've developed players like Nate Sylvia, Fakaosi Pifoletti wasn't really in form last year when he came in. You kind of knew. I mean, he was an England age grade player, and a Saracens Academy graduate, so you figured he'd probably be pretty good. But he just in the few times he got on the pitch behind Sione Tuialamaka, he was okay. He was so. But at loosehead, Nate Sylvia, he's gotten a lot better. And Fakaosi Pifoletti, well, both of the Pifoletti brothers they've been nice, I'll tell you. But at tight head, the class tight head in the game in Major League Rugby is Paddy Ryan. I would say San Diego's scrum is basically what, in a different fashion, what Fitzpatrick has built in Houston, and that's the scrum as a weapon, where you have elite scrummagers going up against not so elite scrummagers and just dictating the tempo, forcing them to concede penalties. And that's what Paddy Ryan did pretty much every single scrum against Blake Rogers, who apparently did not play tight head. He played loose head. In the number 1 jersey, too, even though the roster said he was going to play tight head. But, shut up. That scrum is really dominant. CLC Mahoney coming in and providing that oomph in the engine room. One of the things that San Diego struggled with is real locks. Let's be real. But CLC, 6'8", 280 pounds, he provides some great drive, I'll tell you. But Glendale should have won this game. They conceded the ball less. San Diego's defense was good enough, man. It's all about concession at the correct time, right? If we look at the gain line, they made the gain line 69%, but the turnovers at the correct time by San Diego, what did they do? They slowed the ball down. Think about this. This is a huge stat line when you got to think about it. Quick ball percentage. So rucks in under 3 seconds or less is 3 seconds or less. San Diego had 67% and Glendale had 58%. Sean, you got to dig that ball out and you got to get it out faster. Okay? Jeez. This isn't. And then one of the other things is line out takes. Ooh, Glendale is suffering. 75% in the set piece in the lineup to 88% San Diego. It's just it just be what it be, right? Joe Pietersen still pretty good in the midfield. He does like these wild magician like things. He tackles. Not bad for a 37-year-old, you know. But the only way to beat Glendale is to play just as fast a tempo as them, unless they decide to cough up the ball 20 times. But they haven't been coughing up the ball over 15 times in a couple of matches. So
you also got to beat them in the penalties, man. You need to stay disciplined against Glendale because more often than not, they'll give you the opportunities.
Glendale conceded less penalties in this game. That's a surprise.
Well, that's a humdinger there, don't you know?
So
Cheese and crackers.
Did anyone catch the Care Cup?
This might sound strange coming from me. I was not really able to see more than a minute or two of it, just because I was going to Constellation Field to work the game, around the time that it kind of started. So, but from what I did see, so again, I only watched like 2 minutes. Like it looked like we were moving the ball, but we just weren't quite finishing. There was a few penalties in the time span that I saw, both by Connacht and by the Free Jacks. It wasn't, it wasn't 89 to nothing. It wasn't 100 something to nothing. It was a blowout, but it wasn't awful. I'm liking the way that this Boston team is looking ahead of the MLR season.
So just as a quick wrap or, summation here, the Cara Cup is this tournament that the New England Free Jacks have organized with a bunch of Pro 14 A sides coming over and playing a series of matches in March and April. So this was the first game. It was Free Jacks up against Connacht A side, and the final score was 38-7. And that match was held, I believe, on Saturday.
Yeah, that was. I caught, I think, like 15 minutes of it. The last 15 minutes, where I would say the match was decided because it was the final score was 38-7, and it was 38-7 at that point. Credit to the Free Jacks for competing this well. I think there's going to be a significant portion of this exhibition Free Jacks that forms the core of next season's team because they're going to sign other players. I mean, you're going to have collegiate players graduating. They're for sure going to sign some players that they may be playing to fill out their foreign allocation. The cool thing about this whole thing is that it is a marketing vehicle for the New England franchise. Because there were 2,000 people at Union Point. The biggest issue I had with this whole thing was Union Point not really advertising the fact that they were installing bleachers. I think the only answer to that question was given to Dan Brown, who asked a question on their Facebook page, and instead of putting a post that says, hey, we're installing 2,500 seats at Union Point for the Cara Cup, they just answered a comment on a thread, so it was buried. But as a marketing vehicle, there's a lot of people out there. That was great stuff. As for if you're in the Northeast, it was on Nessun Plus, and I think the final or something is going to be on Nessun Actual, and it was on. The Free Jacks are all up into the new age stuff. They've got a Twitch channel. It was on Facebook, and it was on YouTube. So if you were out of the Nessun catchment area. I think that a lot of these young, talented players that are trying to vie for slots in the squads of the Irish provinces while being on the A sides, some of these guys are going to get the opportunity to play because this film is going to be out there and it's going to be able to be watched by every single head coach, director of rugby, GM in Major League Rugby. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is more than like 10 guys that come over next season across the league from this competition.
And next up for the Free Jacks will be next Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern against Ulster A side. So be sure to tune into that. All right. Let's get to some results. So as always, we like to go back through and see how bad we did with our predictions from last week. And I got to say, I think we did okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take it. Okay. First up was the Friday night match. That was Toronto versus Rooney. Final was 24-21 in Rooney's favor. Aaron, you said Rooney by 5. Liam, you had Rooney by 9, and I had Rooney by 5. So we were right in range there, although I don't think the game went quite how we were expecting it.
No.
Second match was Seawolves versus Austin Elite. We all had Seawolves on this one as well. Aaron, you had them by 10. Liam had them by 20, and I went big and said 30. The final score was 29-17. So, Liam, you were right there, man. Actually, no, Aaron was right there. I can't do basic math. 12.
I was like,
12 points. 12 points.
You know, if you go over wrong.
There you go. So for Sabercats versus NOLA, the final score is 49-11 in NOLA's favor. Aaron, you had NOLA by 10. Liam, you had Houston by 2, and I had NOLA by 20. And then wrapping up the weekend, we had San Diego versus Glendale, and that was a 28-all tie. And, well, none of us saw that one coming. You guys both had San Diego by 5, and I said Glendale by 7. So I think we all whiffed that one pretty good.
Hey, you almost had it. But Glendale, they decided to concede a penalty at the wrong point, which then led Patty Ryan to call a scrum.
So, Aaron, take us through the standings real quick.
NOLA stays on top. They with the bonus point win. They have now 26 table points. 5-1, and then Seattle now moves to second in the standings with their 5th win, bonus point win as well. 25 points. New York at an identical record to NOLA's, but they're not getting as many bonus points. Is 3rd and tied. This is going to get funny. So Glendale has 2 draws this season. They have 23 table points, and so the second tiebreaker the first tiebreaker is wins. So New York is 5-1, so they are 3rd on the table. San Diego, with a record of 4-2-1, has only 22 table points, and Toronto at 3-4 is still in it with at the 6 hole. But they have 17 table points. And then the bottom girls, Utah, with 7 points. This has not changed. Sabercats with 6 points, and Austin with 2 points.
And reminder, now that we're almost halfway through the season, we want to look at the top 4 teams, because the top 4 teams are going to go into the postseason just like last year. So we'll be waiting to see what happens. And, right now there's 3 points. There's 4 points separating the top 5 teams. So that can be made up in one game with bonus points. So think about that one for a second.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Week 9. We're there, fellas. Week 9. Let's do some predictions. First up, Thursday night game. This is a weird one. Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Facebook Watch. The Warriors travel to Houston. What do you guys think?
Why do Texas teams get cursed with Thursday night games?
Dude, it's been a nightmare in the office for the ticket department, man. Don't even get me started. So
I remember, I think Austin had 2 Thursday night games last year. It was bad. I'm going Utah -7. The Sabercats have not given me anything to believe in, and I think they're going to be missing Joth Vithi and Osea Kalinasau if Kalinasau's appeal doesn't get granted. So Utah -7.
All right. So I'm going to be believing in the Sabercats this week. I think, with the absence of Joshua Vithi and Osea Kalinasau, it's definitely going to be a challenge, but I think the guys are going to be able to rise to the occasion. Houston -6.
I'm kind of in Aaron's camp on this one, though I think it's going to be a close match. I'm going Utah by 3. Saturday, we fast forward to Saturday. We've got a 3 p.m. Eastern game, and that's Austin at NOLA. Aaron, lead us off.
Like I said, Austin is getting better. But sort of like last week, sorry. Not going to happen. NOLA -15.
I'm going to go NOLA minus 12 on this one. I think Austin, yeah, they'll put up another good fight, but ultimately that gold squad is rolling. That gumbo is spicy and is it simmering?
Yeah, and I'm believing in what the gold's putting on the field. So I'm saying NOLA by 21. I'm going big on this one. Okay, and then the last game of the weekend, Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that is Glendale traveling to New York City versus Rooney. That one's on. That's the game of the week on CBS Sports Network. So, Aaron.
So if this game was at Glendale, it would be I would make the other pick. But since it's at New York, and New York's got some hype behind them. I think they're going to get some more rooster boosters out. I'm going New York minus 7.
I'm going to go against you on this one just because I need to find that difference maker in terms of making sure my record is better than all y'all on predictions. So I'm going to go Glendale minus 9, just hoping that I'm going to break the mold here and get that extra win.
And I'm following Aaron again on this one. I'm saying Rooney by 7. So we're in agreement on that one, Aaron. Very good. And again, we've got Free Jacks in exhibition play against Ulster. We don't have any predictions on that one, but be sure to check it out, and we'll try to get back with some analysis on it.
It's pretty simple. Ulster by a lot.
I'm going to say Ulster minus 18.
I think if you're the Free Jacks and your coach Josh Smith, that 38-7, I think that's a good result. You're playing against the top of each Irish province of guys that are vying for contracts with the provincial Pro 14 side. So I think that's a good result.
I'll just go ahead and say Ulster by 10. Why not? Just to be different.
So I guess 28 is the
okay.
line. I'll go.
I'm typing it in. I'm typing it in right now. So we'll see how we end up.
We all need something to brag about, man.
Hey, we got one right.
Thrive. Yeah.
Okay. We always like to wrap up the show with questions from Bob, and Bob really stepped up this week. We have got a good number of them. So, as always, we doing lightning round, fellas?
Yep. Let's go.
Okay. Starting us off. Mario Shriram. That is actually how it's pronounced.
It's Marius. Come on.
Marius
Uriam.
Yeah. How many Irish provincial players that played in the Cara Cup do you think Free Jacks will poach in advance of next season?
7.
As many that are allowed, as long as they still pick from a pool of Boston players, I'm all for it.
And Murray follows up by asking, although most of the South Americans are supposed to be participating in the South American League, how many do you think will wind up staying in MLR for multiple years?
If the pay increases, probably a good lot of them, man. Not going to speculate on numbers, but because, who knows how the foreign cap will change.
I say 80% of these guys stay here. The Liga Sudamericana, or whatever it's called, doesn't have a website, but as far as I understand, like, the season's about to be truncated, so there's supposed to be 8 teams. They're talking just 7 games for their season right now. So I would say most of them stay here.
Okay. But I Like Fire ask, going to my first game soon. Any tips and advice?
Enjoy it.
Don't do anything with fire when you go there. Person who apparently likes fire. Other than that, though, talk to people. Everybody in rugby knows somebody.
Resco Operator. For those who play in club rugby and now see the players you played with against in MLR and beyond, what goes through your head?
Yeah.
I have one ex-teammate who played with the Free Jacks player, and I used to live with Paul Emmerich, so that's about all my experience.
So I haven't played against any of those guys. Maybe I have, but none of the names I recognize. I did play with an all-army like sevens pool guy. He was fast. Like he was good.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, when your buddy's band gets big and you stay home and watch them on MTV or something. What decade am I in? Jesus. But yeah, it's kind of that kind of feeling. I don't know. I think you'd be a mix of pride and jealousy. Which school? Okay, this has come from Conky 2195. Which school of thought and rugby DNA will the Americans choose as they create their rugby identity?
Jedi.
The Sith.
They are the dark side. For some reason, I thought that would be the All Blacks.
I said Jedi.
Yeah, but I mean, after the RIM disaster, man, like I have no faith. This is definitely being run by Palpatine.
Don't you think it'd be a little bit smoother if it was?
No. That's exactly what he wants you to think.
Johnny 24. Do we have an official attendance number for Rooney?
Official attendance? No, I think it was like 1,200 was the estimate. Yeah.
Okay. Nola up and under. How do suspensions work in MLR?
So I think, Liam was going to say something, but I think the answer is different than what he was looking for. So currently, until MLR inputs their own rules, it goes by the World Rugby rules, which is by weeks, which includes your bye week, so not by games. So if it's a 2-week suspension and you have a game this week and a bye week next week, well, your suspension is finished at the end of next week. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think so.
Yeah, you get the chance to appeal, but other than that, what Aaron said.
All right, and the last question of the night. Why Too Easy asks, I've watched every Rooney match and always have the same question. Why is it that with 10 minutes or so left, they take out Mike Petrie?
Just a minutes count, man. Like, coaches sometimes have a very specific plan for how they want to use players. Mike Petrie is one of the older players on the Rooney roster. They might want to develop other people. It's just kind of sometimes how the cookie crumbles.
Depends on how you separate your backs from your forwards on your bench. On your bench, you have to have a minimum of 3 front rows, and then you can kind of do whatever the heck you want. But most coaches do a 5-3 split, and you have an extra fly half and a backup scrum half and a utility wing, and it's man management. Although maybe I might get some stick for this, but Mike has had some humdingers when it comes to some of his games so far this season. So I think you need to limit. Like Mike Petrie can play at a very high level, but then he can. He's also like 35 or whatever his age is.
He's a science teacher.
Science teacher by day, rugger by night.
Yeah, he's got to be able to like go back into the classroom on Monday. So you got to be nice.
All right, that's about it, fellas. Any final thoughts on the way out?
No. My mind is just a blank, blank slate.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week where I'll bring you more folksy colloquialisms. Until then, please note that the opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of the hosts and the guests and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or practices of Major League Rugby teams or the league. Aaron Castro is employed by Major League Rugby. Liam Madigan-Freed is employed by the West Houston Lions and the Houston SaberCats. Be sure to tune in next week. We're live each and every Monday night here on YouTube and available on your favorite podcast platform each Wednesday morning. If you like what we do, please give us a subscribe here on YouTube and on iTunes, and be sure to give us a review and tell your friends about us if you could. That'd be very helpful. And as always, be sure to hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with your news, views, and abuse. Thanks as always for listening. Until next time, get out there and watch some rugby.